We've been asked to make some comments about the use of transparency and gradients in a GCAD Plus design. We use gradients to illustrate, for the sake of argument, this wetland through here. If I select the polyline, notice that we've applied a point gradient. It has a start colour, a darker blue, and an end colour, a lighter blue. We can play with the gradient length and a point offset and so on. We have a lot of control over how we set a gradient. We've also used it here in a lawned area, and I think that's about all we've used a gradient for. A word of warning, we stay away from using gradients within symbols that represent plant species, because if you put gradients in the species and that gets copied in, say, a nested symbol with lots of copies inside, performance of GCAD Plus absolutely slows down. We use transparency, on the other hand, where we want, especially we use it in the species that represent the upper canopy. So if we sort of do it on the fly, this symbol here is clearly, let me click away from it, we want to be able to see through. This is an upper story plant. We want to be able to see the geometry underneath it. Not quite so important there, but we certainly want to be able to see the path here. If I select it and right click and say I'm going to edit the block, and I select that green colour, it's colour 221, 244, 176. That's the red, green, blue proportions. But what we have done is give it a transparency of 150. If I put that back to a transparency, so no transparency, and close the block edit, can you see we almost cannot see any of the information under it? I think that one there is being set to be at the front, so we can use a tool if we want it to be very precise. A draw order, we want to send it under this particular object, but it's so much more efficient to simply edit the block and apply a transparency. I think we used about 150, and then close the block editor. So it's important here. So what we do is go back over the design when it's finished, and we'll just edit any of the symbols that represents upper canopy. You can see this symbol over here, which just shows a whole lot of planting. This is the concept design too, by the way, along the edge of the pathway of the roadway going in. Doesn't need any transparency at all. So we ring the changes, and they're quite quick to do, and that gives a bit of vibrancy. So the two are sort of related to one another, but different. Use them in different ways. If you follow that general outline, the performance of your design will be quite snappy. We can zoom extends here. We can move in and pan, and everything's working very snappily. But do be careful about getting carried away with using gradients within symbols for particular species. I do have a wildlife corridor running through here, and what I've got here is some typical planting, and again I can see through this symbol and see through that one, and they're tagged not with a plant database yet, but just with some text. And that one, Eucalyptus leucoxylon, and they certainly need some transparency associated with them. So I hope that helps.